Ignore these colours. They don't mean anything right now. It's all pink. It's all about the colour pink in Gujarat at the moment. Yes, the home side may be sitting and waiting and watching in the grand finale, but what a performance it's been from the Royal, or one of the two Royals, the Rajasthan Royals, not the Royal Challengers. And they certainly proved 157 for 8 was under par. They showed it was under par, and they got there with 11 balls to spare. Had it been a situation in a league game, they were in a position to have won it with even 4 or 5 overs to spare, but they just chose to pace themselves. And guess what? Jos Buttler paced himself beautifully. 106 not out of 60 deliveries. Yet again, we asked the question at the top, which Buttler would turn up? And he answered it emphatically. Rajasthan versus Gujarat in the final on Sunday. For now, we look back on this game on Cricbuzz Live in the company of Michael Vaughan and Ajay Jadeja. Michael, foregone conclusion is what we said. Foregone conclusion is what it was. But for a team that lost in that first game, they showed what it meant to say, okay, let's regroup. This is why we've got that second chance.
Yeah, Sanju got it right. Bowling was the right thing. That pitch seemed to get better. I mean, they weren't chasing a huge target. It was well below par. But when you've got the number one white ball player in the world playing like that, I just think he's that far away from other players at the minute with the way that he's batting. Buttler just knows how to control the game. He knows when he needs a boundary. He's pretty much got so many options to find that boundary. He's very calm. I think he sends a real calmness to his partner. He is some player. He's basically dragged the Royals throughout the whole of this year's IPL. Yes, there's been some good performances around him, but he's single-handedly really dragging this Rajasthan Royal team. And the banner of Shane Warne, the first ever Royal, it could be a special day on Sunday if they can get that trophy lifted in memory of Shane.
Yeah, it would be a very, very special tribute. And as Michael said, the one person who's leading the charge in that tribute, I mean, yes, it's a team game. Yes, they've played as a team. They've had a wonderful bowling outfit throughout. But this individual, head and shoulders above the rest. And which is why we decided right up front on the show, before I even bring Ajay in, let's nominate our OMNIGEL relief and recovery performer of the match. And that is, without a doubt, Jos Buttler. And yes, OMNIGEL, India's #1 pain recovery gel brand, not only gives quick relief, but also recovery from pain. No dud for the fans of Rajasthan. And I say no dud with very unequivocally, because after that first game, they were feeling the pain. They were feeling the dud, having lost to Gujarat and then knowing that they need to have a second chance. They've taken that second chance, Ajay. Butler's led them beautifully right from the start of the tournament.
Yeah, he's been the man who's been leading the side. I mean, not as a captain, but as a batsman, or every time they needed somebody. I mean, why wait till somebody needed? I mean, the starts that he's given, he's got 400s now, and from a #1 player in the world, as Michael once says, that's what you expect. And my favorite thing is once you get going, then you got to see the game through. And he's done that 4 times when he's got 100 and another 80 as well. So, and plus he's got a couple of, zeros and low scores as well. It just shows that it's not just the total number of runs that you get. When you get those runs, what impact that it makes on the game. And he's made a huge impact throughout the season.
Couldn't ask for better timing.
He's taken the dard away from the fans.
Couldn't ask for better timing, Michael. First 7 games, 3 out of 400s he got early on. Then he went through a bit of a lean patch. Then he had a bit of a recovery kind of innings and then saved his best for an eliminator.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big game player. He always has always done that. Since he's come into the England side, you always feel that there's a big game, a big moment. Butler generally provides that context of a real big innings. He always seems to be out there when the battle's on. He always seems to be there when there's a real tight issue. Today wasn't tight because it was so easy, but he's got the mentality to be able to cope with the situation, which gives Rajasthan such a great opportunity on Sunday, because when you've got that style of player in your side, it does rub off on other players. It just calms everyone down. Everyone believes that they can get over the line. But I've seen him play great for periods for England, but for the consistency levels in this year's IPL, under that pressure, under that spotlight, taking risks, which you have to in T20 cricket, to score over 800 runs, to get over 4 centuries. It's a remarkable return. If there was an auction next year, I'd love to know how much you'd go for.
And yes, as Michael mentioned, only the third player in history to get past 800. Only 2 names ahead of him, Virat Kohli and David Warner. Ajay, to finish off on Butler's magnificence, 200 runs almost ahead of the second place man in the race for the orange cap.
Yeah, he's been in a different league this year. I mean, it's just that, towards the end, he probably had a little flutter and didn't get runs in the last 3-4 games just before the knockout started. Otherwise, he probably would have crossed, Virat Kohli's 970, or maybe would have got close to that 1,000. It's amazing. I mean, just to have that kind of consistency. And out of those 800, 4 come in 4 innings. I mean, 400 plus runs. It just shows what quality player he is.
Yeah, and that is why, as we said, we were absolutely unanimous about the fact that indeed it was Jos Buttler who was our relief and recovery performer of the match, our OMNIGEL relief and recovery performer of the match. He ensured that there was absolutely no dud for Rajasthan fans. 106 not out of 60 deliveries. But Michael, we have to say the hard words here. We have to look at the Royal Challengers Bangalore, even with the momentum, and I'm going to use the word despite the fact that we don't use it on the show, even with the momentum of a fabulous victory the other day, backdoor entry, that was my logic. You've come in the back way and you just want to stay there. It just sort of defied everything with the fact that maybe they weren't quite as, I'm not saying keen, but that first innings really set up the game.
Yeah, if you go back to the first eliminator that they won, they pretty much got away with it because of that striking at the end. What did they score? 92 in the last 6.5 overs. You can't rely on that kind of finish in every game. They had a platform today to go on and get 180, 190. They had it there for them to, and they didn't have to do a great deal more. They'd done they kind of had a bit of fortune in the first few overs, and suddenly they've got such a good start that you thought at worst they were going to get 170, and at best they could have got 190. And if DK came off, could have got over 200. And I think if Buttler had been chasing 190, it'd have been a different game because he'd have had to do a few different things early. When you're chasing that low score, you can just go for it. And Siraj got him off to a poor start. He bowled a bad first over and they're away. And then that power play gets struck. And pretty much, as we said at the halfway, if they get out the power play and they've got only 1 wicket down and they've got plenty on the board, pretty much going to be game over because you've not given Harshal Patel anything to bowl to. You haven't got Hasaranga. They could just knock Hasaranga around. So they just didn't get enough with the bat in hand. It was there for them. It's kind of the story of their season. They've played well at times, but they have had inconsistent moments, and that inconsistency came out today.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, in a sense, these 2 playoffs, if you look at it back to back for Bangalore, Ajay, has pretty much been the story of their season at the league stage. Just when you think they're getting on a roll, they come with a couple of not so great games. And then again, they have to pick themselves up.
Yeah, it's probably just a reflection, like you said, throughout the season. I mean, we used in Hindi, we used to call them the 50-50 team because, either it's all in or all out. They don't seem to, take the game or play it the way it should be played on that particular day. They have a style of playing and they stick with it, and that's been their success mantra, including say somebody like Harshal Patel. Today you saw him bowl many overs earlier, but generally it's right at the end. DK will play those last 5 overs. The flamboyant players will go out there and play their style of play. So the day they come off, they're unbeatable. I mean, when you look at that side, I mean, they've done well in that sense when they've got to the eliminator here. But the quality in that side is far better than, I'm sure they'd be disappointed with the result that they've had today. But if you look at the whole season, that's how they've gone. I mean, they've either won it big or they've lost it big. And that's how they've decided to play, and they've stuck to it. Just because they stuck to it, I think they've beaten the other 50-50 teams that we had, and that's how they made it to the knockouts.
Yeah, they fixed a few things. If we remember, it seems a long time ago that Anuj Rawat was giving them starts up front. Virat Kohli was not opening at the time. People were crying out for Kohli to open. He finally comes up there. You find the success in Patidar at number 3. So they fixed a few things, but was it just a case of a little too late, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't think the big players have had great seasons, and when you want to win an IPL, you need your your best players to do well, and then obviously the younger players come in. I mean, Rajat Patidar has been a revelation from nowhere, really, and he's gotten to this position pretty much single-handedly. But I don't think, fast captaincy is always very, very smart. He's done okay with the bat, but I think he could have done better. Virat's just had a poor season. Glenn Maxwell has just done what Glenn Maxwell does. He pretty much is hit and miss. Shabad Ahmed has done okay at times. He's a little bit of tick in the good box. The bowling department of Josh Hazlewood, Harshal Patel, and Hasaranga have been magnificent. Look at Hazlewood again today, just solid. I'm amazed he didn't bowl that first over. When you've only got a small time, I'm amazed he didn't bowl the first over to set the tone. They had to get early wickets. They had to set the tone. Siraj, he's a firecracker. You know that he can bowl them incredible deliveries, but you also know he might leak runs. Whereas with Josh Hazlewood, he's not going to leak runs, and he could get 1 or 2 early wickets. So I'm amazed he didn't start the innings with Hazlewood, but it's just been a season for RCB where they've got closer. They've got closer than they generally do, and they're getting an edging ever nearer, but you generally don't win a big tournament without your best players turning up and being consistent, and that's pretty much what's happened, particularly with the bat in hand.
Yeah, that first Siraj over going for 16 runs, Jaiswal on the rampage, it set the tone for the run chase, it did. But the other day we mentioned when Patidar and Kohli were batting together that inside the helmet, there's just a slight tinge of a resemblance. That's where the resemblance ends. Ajay, if you compare their performances in the season, Patidar just had 7 innings and he's got 333 runs. Virat Kohli has played every single game and he's got almost the same amount of runs, 341 in 16 innings at a strike rate of 115.
Yeah, it'd be unfair to, compare these two. It's a bit too early for Patidar to be even, we compared to him. I think he's a fabulous player and he has a great future. But I think
let me just clarify. We weren't trying to compare the two, but it was just the story of Kohli's season. That a young kid who looks a bit like him, only in 7 innings, gets the same number of runs.
Yeah, I'm sure. The young kid who's come has, at least shown glimpses of what he could be. When, maybe I would look at it that, when Kohli was a young man, if he came in, what you saw. But probably the worst season that Kohli's had. I can't remember a time where Kohli struggled to, find 1 run at a time, because there was a period in the middle where 3-4 games where he was not even getting that 1 run off. And it's bound to happen, for somebody who's had a career, such an illustrious career, and probably the best player that we've seen for, a decade or so. He had his worst season, and Patidar probably has had his best season, because don't forget, Patidar was around last year as well. He had 4 innings last year, and he got 40 odd in the whole total. So there are times that you have, a great time, and Patidar is, I look at him as a player of the future for sure. But Kohli's had the worst season, so I would not even go close to anywhere around Kohli. You can't assess Kohli on a year like this. It's been a terrible year. Yes. If it hadn't been for Kohli, I can say that as well. Anybody else, by the time he got that 70 odd, had it been anyone else in the Indian cricket as well, would have probably been rested by then. But it's Virat Kohli, and he will come back stronger.
Nobody's ever doubted the man's pedigree, the man's class. But Michael, just looking back at some of the ways he's found to get himself out in this season, and today was an example. There were players who were beaten by the ball. You think of Hasaranga getting out to that absolute peach of a Yorker. It would have got anyone in the world out. But Virat Kohli didn't get that. He had 1 miles outside the off stump, and he just wafted at it almost, like an orchestra conductor, and sent it straight to Sanju Samson.
Yeah, it happens. He's a legendary player that's just going through a time that it's not so easy. 2 or 3 years ago, we all just turned on the telly or arrived at the ground and we just knew Virat was going to get 100. He just went through one of those periods where every time he batted, he seemed to get 100. Well, at the minute, it's a career, isn't it? You don't go through your whole career where everything is so easy. He just needs a breather for me. I just think he needs a bit of time away from the game, go and spend some time with the family, refresh, get on the plane to England, and then start to hit some balls again. These players play so much and they're under so much pressure every single day of their lives that it's inevitable that eventually, you go through a period where you struggle a little bit, and that's what's happening to Virat. He's too good a player not to bounce back and come back, and he'll have one of those periods again like we saw a few years ago where he got so many centuries on the trot. It's just that little bit harder at the minute, and he's got to work so hard to get back into form. But when he gets the bat back in his hand at the minute, I think he should just pack his bat into his bag and just go and have a breather. Go and have a sit down with the family. Go on a bit. I don't know where you can go without getting hassled and pestered and doing commercials. Just get away from all that stuff. Just go and have a few weeks and chilling, and then he'll be a little bit fresher next time he picks up his bat.
Yes, maybe a skiing holiday in Aspen, Colorado. Just find a quiet corner of the world where they may not recognize him, which is very tough for Virat Kohli, and just get away from it all. I think I couldn't agree with Michael more. He'll be heading to Michael's part of the world in July, but at least, Ajay, he's guaranteed that he will not be pressurized to play right now because he's not in the squad for the South Africa series. So that will be a relief for him in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be, it'd probably be a relief for him that he'll get that break that Michael is suggesting. And I think most people who've, looked at him for the last couple of months have felt that he needs that break. Even if he doesn't get a break, I think he should go and have some chola bhaturas and go back to the start, start from where he did. Probably he's, giving up too much or trying too hard. And it happens. I mean, this happens to you. I mean, he'll have to change something. I mean, because his mind has to change and something has to, either if he takes a break or he does something different. But surely what he's trying, and he's trying very hard, and you keep seeing it on social media or anybody who follows him, that he's training harder and he's not giving up. That's Virat Kohli. I don't think he needs to, even show it to anybody else. Everybody knows that he would never give up. It's more about, be nice to yourself. It's okay. It's just a game of cricket. And it'll be a moment to cherish next time when you get to 100, because I think it had almost become like a daily routine, like Michael said. It seemed so easy at one time, and now it's gone to the other extreme. So have a break, have some chola bhaturas.
The follow-up question, Ajay, is it just a game of cricket? I mean, I know you suggested something completely different from what I did. Aspen, Colorado, where you don't get chola bhatura. So you want him to be you want him to feel more at home, which is fine. But, were you superstitious? Let me just ask you this. Did you ever have a superstition? Yeah.
Look, I mean, I think me or anyone who's played this game, you are superstitious in some form or the other. Somebody likes to start with one leg on the ground.
The reason why I'm asking that is when you're going through a bad patch like this, I can think of a few players who would change the number on their back.
Yeah, but that's Dada. He would change everything. He'd change shoes. He'd change somebody's T-shirt. But that's for people who had good seasons or had good runs and they had a bad patch. Somebody like me always had a bad patch, so I never had this problem of turning it back. It was always about what next. So I was looking for something to hold on to, which I think most human beings who play this sport do.
Well, something tells me that's not the Ajay Jadeja I remember. Every time he was going out there was this panther in the field at cover point and scoring the runs. And anyway, he has a memory of a different player. But let's move to Rajasthan Royals, Michael. Look at the positives that they'll take out, because I think Gujarat, sitting in their hotel rooms watching this, would be like, in case they had a preconceived notion about who they'd rather play, now they're starting to think, oh dear, this looks like a very, very sizzling hot team to come.
Yeah, well, the good thing, the two top teams in the group stages have made the final. So that tells you that the best two teams have made the final, which is, generally what you'd like to see. What are the concerns for Gujarat? I mean, it's just Jos Buttler, Sanju, obviously at number 3. If you can dislodge that combination early, I think you win the game. I think it's very clearly, if you can dislodge Buttler and Sanju Sam, so somewhere in the next 24 to 36 hours, the Gujarat think tank have got to come together and think, right, how do we attack Buttler early? What do we do? What is our best option to try and get Buttler early and then to get Sanju Samson? If you can get that sorted, you have a great chance of beating Rajasthan. But, this pitch, I was really impressed with Prasid Krishna tonight, to bounce back from that pasting that he received from Killer Miller the other evening, where he got it wrong. He just didn't get his length right. He's got a pitch that he's got a bit of bounce and it got a bit of movement early, and it must be when you're trying to bounce back from an iffy performance where you've been dispatched to then get a wicket with a bit of pace and carry, it must give you a bit of a boost as a quickie. But his return tonight, 3 for 22 from those 4 overs, 17 dot balls out of his 4 overs is remarkable. So the Rajasthan Royals, they play on the same venue just in 48 hours' time. It has to give them a big edge that they've played on this venue, and the Gujarat Titans have to play for the first time on Sunday. But I guess it's a T20 game. We thought the RCB team would win today because of what they did 2 nights ago. That wasn't the case. It's T20 cricket. Anything can happen.
But before we actually look ahead to that particular game, let's just wrap this discussion up with the victory for Rajasthan by looking at the positives for the season as a whole, because they'll be playing that one grand final on Sunday, Ajay. But if we look back at the positives, we've talked a lot about Jos Buttler. But along with Jos Buttler, there's been enough going around to make sure that they've reached the final. Positives from the auction till now for you, Ajay.
I think Padikkal at number 4, being comfortable at that number and, playing that role. Hitmaier, of course, till he took that break, he was in form, somebody who's not been very consistent. So, that consistency, they got better than what they were expecting. And the investment that they had in Chahal and Ravichandran Ashwin, I think that's paid off brilliantly. And Prasidh Krishna, so everyone who's, been in that side, and not too many changes. I mean, yes, I know everyone played. Nisham played, Obed McCoy played. So they've had a few changes tactically or one player rotating, but generally they've stuck to their side, which was not the case in the last few years. So everything that they tried succeeded. So, they didn't have to worry too much. And auction was successful in that sense. And the way I see the big change in the auction that we saw this time compared to the last few years is they would always have bits and pieces player. They would have bits and pieces. They would change their strategies every game and would bring in that uncertainty. I think the big change this year was they went for pure class players. They may not have got the best, that they wanted, but anybody who was there was for their specific, not a role, but specific, whether they were there for batting or for bowling. It wasn't that there was a bit of this and bit of that. There was only one bit of this and bit of that, and all of it was Riyan Parag, and they've stuck to him as well. So, I think that's been their biggest gain this year.
Yeah, I'm glad Ajay clarified that, because as he was ending that, I was just about to say, but Riyan Parag could have been the one. But yes, they didn't just use his bowling randomly as they have in the past. So they stuck to him with a particular role. And so even he has found his place in this 11. Michael, anything you'd like to add to that in terms of the journey from the auction till the final?
No, not really. I mean, I just think they had a better auction than we've seen before. That combination of the experienced spin twins, just for me, straight away, I thought, yeah, they've got a better chance. They've got a better chance. I think the batting lineup was pretty much set in stone from the get-go. I know Sanju had a moment where he batted at 5 and that wasn't right. And Ashwin had a bit of a pop at the top of the order at number 3. But, overall, across the whole of the IPL, they've been very kind of rigid in terms of the roles that every single player seem to be playing. So they all know and clarified their roles, which helps. They didn't swap and change too much, but when you've got Bolt as well, who's a great tone setter with that first over, generally he gets wickets and he sets the tone. And then you've got 2 real quality spin twins. And then you've got Obed McCoy, again, is different and a little bit bigger than Trent Bolt and offers great slower balls. It's a well-organised team, very understandable when they're led by Sangakkara. You would expect Kumar to get it right more often than not. So they have got it right in terms of the team, the auction. But it does help when you've got a player like Buttler. if you don't have Buttler, it's very, very difficult. With Buttler, I think most teams would have been quite successful this year.
Yep, it was Buttler and company taking them to the grand final. So we've had 73 games. The league stage, the first qualifier, the eliminator, and the second qualifier. And the end of all of that, when the dust has settled on the banks of the Sabarmati, it's 2 teams standing, Gujarat and Rajasthan, for the grand finale on the final Sunday of IPL 2022. Well, if it is set in Gujarat at that magnificent stadium, then we have to talk about the Gujarat franchise first. They've been the top team in the tournament. They've led the way first in the league stage, and in that first qualifier, they've marched into the final in their very first season as a franchise. Ajay, firstly, of course, you have to celebrate their success. But now that they've had a few days to think about it, now that they've got an opposition coming in with maybe a bit more recent match form, if you like, a couple of days more recent. And that too, they've played on the Gujarat home turf before even the Gujarat team have played. Is that going to give their opposition an advantage?
No, certainly they'll have an advantage of playing on this surface, because this surface was totally different from all the other surfaces that we've seen. Maybe more towards the first few games in the IPL, where we saw a little bit of juice for the seam bowlers, and the top order had to really work hard, and that's where the games were changing. But so they haven't had the opportunity to play on it, but at least they've been sitting in their rooms and watching it, so they would know that. But I think they have an advantage of, if I was Gujarat Lions and we were sitting and watching a game or talking about tomorrow's game, I'd say, look, this is the same side we beat 3 days ago. They got to 188, which is not a small total. We chased it down with ease. So we didn't have the best day with our ball, but we still chased it down with ease. So the confidence would probably be with Gujarat Lions. I think they've got to look at it that way. But yes, what you said is absolutely right. Having played on that surface, you might have a slight better idea. It might take a couple of balls for the opposition to figure out what length is right. And you've already gone through that. So that's a slight advantage. But, it's a final. It's just one last day. You had a great season. Both teams have had a great season. I mean, they've got a second chance. They've come back. Anything can happen. But over the league phase, Gujarat's done well. They've been the champions. They got there at number one. One game, even if it goes the other way, not just because it's a friend of ours who's running that side, but I think even if it goes the other way, I think they've done a great job, and they are a champion side.
They certainly are. And of course, as fellow Gujaratis, I know we've had more than one franchise, but it's the Titans, not the Lions. Ajay?
Yeah, it is the Titans, and these guys are Titans. I mean, look, where are they? First year they've got it to the finals. The stadium that you're playing on is the largest stadium in the world. I mean, in terms of capacity of people. So everything about Gujarat at the moment is, Titan. And see what happened. You bring the Royal Challengers into a dry state, and they've been sent back out as well.
I could see that coming at some point in time. But yes, okay, we'll say it's an interesting matchup there. On the one hand, Rajasthan have played a match on this surface where Gujarat haven't. On the other hand, Gujarat have beaten Rajasthan 3 days ago. So I think that kind of evens it out. Let's have a look at what happened in that last game. 188 for 6. David Miller finished things off in the end. Prasidh Krishna was one at the receiving end. 3 balls, 3 sixes, but he came back well. So in a sense that Rajasthan have repaired some of the wounds of that game, and they've done that reparation on this very surface, on the very square that they're going to play the final. So, Michael, where do you see the advantage lying with where everything stands today?
Well, I mean, two good teams. I mean, Rajasthan clearly will have a slight advantage because they've just played on the same wicket. But, it's a final. Each sets of players, you kind of look around the dressing room. There's high class in each dressing room. I'll guarantee one thing: whoever wins the toss will field. I'll guarantee you that now. So they want to chase. I can't see that they wouldn't want to chase, having seen what we've seen tonight. I think the likes of Shami will enjoy bowling on this surface. Rashid Khan, we saw him bowl to Jos Buttler. If I was Gujarat, what I would do is bowl Rashid Khan to Buttler straight away, because he hasn't got a clue which way it's going. He's openly admitted that he's no idea. So you might as well throw that card early in the power play and say, get him out and see if you can dislodge him. So there's a little matchup that I would go for. We could talk for hours saying, Rajasthan have got an advantage and Gujarat have had a few days off. They might have just relaxed too much. But ultimately, these are two high-class teams that it really is down to individuals at this stage, because collectively they clearly are teams. You can see that Gujarat have been amazing, the first year, and they've just kind of got a culture of team. Hardik as a captain's been fantastic, but on Sunday it'll be an individual that does something magic, like Butler's just done tonight. It will be an individual, and both sets of management will be looking around their dressing room and go, please one of ours has one of those special days. And it'll be a very fortunate captain on Sunday evening that picks up the trophy. And it's going to be not for the first time for Rajasthan, but the first time for Gujarat, and a long time since Rajasthan won this trophy. So it's a great final. Two outstanding teams, played the best cricket. I wouldn't dare pick at this stage. It's a flick of the coin for me.
But Michael, when he mentioned the flick of the coin as far as Sunday is concerned, suggested field first. Ajay, you had your eyebrows raised at that time. The record before you answer that, Ajay, we've had 14 finals so far. It's 9-5 in favor of batting first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a bat first person, and I think even today when we watched that game, it was the first 5 overs there where, I think where it was the toughest to bat for both innings. It's just that when the team was chasing, this total was so low. And the other thing is, like he said, Hazelwood didn't start the first over. Forget about just starting. I mean, he didn't even get the 4th over. They just took him off. There was a different side. They play differently. They play that, computer game, who's going to bowl which over, no matter what condition. Whereas Gujarat, I think, with Shami opening the bowling, and if I don't know whether Lockie's fit or not, or whether he comes back, they generally play with 3 pure seamers. So, and if there is a weakness in Gujarat, from my point of view, has always been the batting. And so, you want to bat first. You get so we saw 160 without Buttler could have been different. There was jitters, not jitters. They could have, finished it off a lot earlier, but they still took their time because they believe, what if it goes wrong? And this was just the semi-final. So I still believe, if I don't know, if Ashu's hearing this, I would always bat first with the side that I have. I have 5 pure bowlers. There will be no stage that you will let the game drift away. And I thought today they let the game drift away. So,
we'll see what
that's the way I see it. Because the wicket, once the game starts in the evening, and if there is something for the seamers at the start of the innings, how is it possible that the wicket changes? There's no sun beating down. It can't get any better. It can only get worse, unless there's dew. Can a wicket get better once the
I don't know.
sun's gone down?
I'm not suggesting that I would potentially bowl. I'm just saying I know from watching the IPL quite close this year, I will guarantee that both captains will bowl.
It'd be a brave captain to bat first, but it's always easy batting first. Ask the guys who come in at 5, 6, and 7. They much rather bat first.
Well, I can tell you, if I had to, I'm just like Michael's looking around. If I had to pick one captain out of the 10 I've seen, just from the trend I've observed in the tournament, it's Hardik Pandya. And the only other captain who may not have done it often enough, but has been happy batting first, is Sanju Samson. Why? Because he lost all his tosses and was asked to bat first. So in a sense, these are the 2 teams in the tournament probably happiest to end up batting first for whatever reason. So we'll see what happens in a grand final. Do they elect to bowl first? Do they prefer to lose a toss? Not that you ever prefer to do that, but it's sometimes in your mind, you just say, okay, it's out of our hands. Let's just do whatever we've been asked to do. Quick look at the 2 squads. Gujarat first. When you've reached the final, you've just had a qualifier. You're not really going to tinker with the team unless it's an injury issue. Michael, probably the one area where they've had a toss-up is between Alzari Joseph and Lockie Ferguson. Assuming Lockie's fit, do you choose Lockie over Alzari?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think he's consistently played a lot more. I just like Lockie Ferguson. I just think he's got that bundle of energy and that ability to get wickets at key times. He pretty much can bowl all the 20 overs. Doesn't matter when he bowls. Generally doesn't bowl that many overs right at the back end, but he can. I go to Lockie Ferguson. If he's fit and he's raring to go and he's bowled nicely and he's in good kind of rhythm in the nets, that would be the call I'd be making.
Fair enough. Ajay, the key for the season, one of the new names, Sai Kishore, has been the revelation in the sense towards the back end. Not quite like a Patidar, but he's been sort of just chipping in enough to keep his place in the 11.
Yeah, he's bowled well enough, and I believe he can bat well as well. He can contribute with the bat, but it's way down the order. It'll be at the top. So, if you want to play 2 spinners, yes, he goes along. Otherwise, what do? You need to bring in an Indian, fast bowler, which where we have Varun Arun is what they started with, and they've, played with Vijay Shankar for a while.
But they used Sangwan. Sangwan wasn't the worst when he came in there as a replacement.
Yeah, but I think Yash Dayal's done much better because he played before him and then he came in for injury for Yash Dayal. And once Yash Dayal was fit again, then he's come back. So, it's that choice. How do you want to go? And they probably would stick with that side. There's not much because the conditions aren't too different. Unless you want to add another seamer. I'd probably go for another seamer looking at what's happened today at the game. Spinners haven't had much help. I know it's a huge ground, but it doesn't seem very dry. I mean, the wicket was not one of those dry wickets in Ahmedabad that you see. So if it's not going to be dry, then you probably might change that Sai Kishore for another seamer.
Or just to finish off in Gujarat, is it too radical a suggestion to rest Matthew Wade or tactically swap Matthew Wade for Lockie Ferguson? So you play Lockie and Alzari along with Yash Dayal and Mohammad Shami.
Yeah, it's a thought. I mean, you could do that, but it all depends on how you feel with your batting, because Matthew Wade hasn't been part of their side throughout. They started with him as a wicketkeeper batsman. Then he was injured, or they had to change the side, and then Saha's done exceptionally well. So there was no place. It was only in the last couple of games Wade came back when Lockie went. So, I don't know. Last couple of games, they've used him pretty well. I mean, he was required, because if you don't get a good start, then what do you do? So it's a call that they will have to take depending on what they feel about their batting. I mean, it's a mood of a team. I mean, and you are a successful team. And when you're a successful team, then the mood is always positive. So if you feel, it's not that, oh, what if we don't have him? It's about, do you want another batsman or do you want another bowler? And whatever comes to your mind, you should go with it. Lockie Ferguson or Wade, both are quality players, and on their day, both of them can win you games.
Yeah, what you could possibly do is, if you're then taking an extra seam bowler, and you've got Tewati as a bowling option, you've got Rashid Khan, take out Sai Kishore and get in another batsman because you've lost Matthew Wade, and that could be a Sai Sudarshan perhaps, or even an Abhinav Manohar who showed some form early on. So lots of options for them, but as Ajay mentioned, it's about who's bowling well in the nets. It's about the feel. It's about what happens on Saturday night just before the game. Quick look at Rajasthan. They'll just want to stay on the park and finish the game right now. But
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste. There you go. Michael's answered it even before we've come.
Don't even look at it. You're not going to change anything from tonight's performance, unless there's a niggle. It didn't look like there was anyone limping around or struggling. I can't imagine they're even going to have a meeting about the selection. I think it'd be making sure that no one wakes up with a sore tummy or a little bit of a hangover. Probably won't be celebrating too much tonight because the game is so close on Sunday. But I can't imagine Kumar's going to be calling a selection meeting. It'll just be fizz. Are they all fit? Yeah, right, let's go. Same again.
Yeah, that's the quickest preview we've had to any particular team in this tournament. So well done, Michael, Vaughan and Ajay. We've got that out of the way only because they were so convincing. That's all it is. No, chances of tummy bugs, very little. Vegetarian food mostly, and I think they'll all be all right. So
if they have a problem with a niggle, OMNIGEL is available.
Well done. Well done. Go on. Relief and recovery. I think they're going to having lots of that. Jos Buttler's going to need a little bit to just recover. And of course, we did tell you at the start of the show that our OMNIGEL relief and recovery performer of the match was the one and only JB, Jos Buttler. From one JB then, let's go to the other JB. Yeah. The also hardworking, tireless Joy Bhattacharya. He provides us with the quiz questions. You answer them, we give you a little prize. Let's find out what the question was. And here it is. What connects international bowling performances by Sanat Jayasuriya and Yuzvendra Chahal, a song by the Beatles, and the Indian rupee before 1957? The only Beatles numerical song I could think of is When I'm 64. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that. Apparently, I'm being told I'm correct on that. So 64. Mm-hmm. And the Indian rupee had been converted down from 64 paise. So when I'm 64, Beatles had a song. Both Jayasuriya and Chahal have conceded 64 in 4 overs in a T20I. Oh dear, that's not a good record to bring up for either of them. But there you go. Will you still love me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? I don't know why I've been trying to sing today. I absolutely cannot sing. So apologies to everyone out there in Cricbuzz Live. But I love the Beatles. So any chance I get to even hum a tune, I will take advantage of that. But let us move on to the winner before I start singing anymore. And our winner is Sharat Shetty. Well done, old Sharat. Sharat Shetty 1819 or Sharat _1819. Well done. I think yet another new name that we've added to the list. So there you have it. Let's confirm one final time. We do have our 2 finalists. It's Gujarat and it's Rajasthan. They will be taking each other on. Will be taking each other on at the giant stadium in Ahmedabad, the biggest stadium in the world. 30 minutes after the normal time we've been coming to you. Normal games have been starting at 7:30. The grand final starts at 8 p.m. So we will be on air on Cricbuzz Live at 7:30 p.m. As will, of course, all our other members, including Match Party. That's going to be on. Cricbuzz Plus is where you get that. Subscribe and you can have lots and lots of fun. For now, on the show, from everyone on our team and Michael Vaughan and Ajay Jadeja, it's thank you all for watching and good night.